Rich Bozich, WDRB-TV in Louisville. We've had him on a couple of different times talking Louisville. I think once the last time with men's basketball, and now joins us on SICK on 365 Radio and 365 Sports with Craig, David, and Paul. Rich, thanks for your time. So what is the momentum you see right now with Louisville football?
Well, the recruiting momentum is substantial, and it's been building for a while. They started getting commitments back several months ago, mainly from, I think it's Pierre Clarkson, a quarterback, the son of Steve Clarkson, the quarterback guru out in California, and that's led to a few others, and other guys have joined on board. And I think at the current rate, they have 10 commitments in the number 11 class in the country.
How big of an off season for this is this for Scott Satterfield, who needs some good news because he's got a new AD and they've been average since he's been there?
Yeah, it's big. I mean, his first year he came in here and took over a mess from Bobby Petrino, who was 2-10. And they had a good season. I think they went 8-5, and he was voted ACC Coach of the Year. Then the next year was the COVID year, and it didn't go well for them, and a losing record, didn't go to bowl game. And last year, they didn't have a great year again, and they've been dominated by Kentucky. And that's really hurt them. They haven't been competitive at the top of the ACC Atlantic in the way they were in the Lamar Jackson days, and crowds are down. Last year, I mean, I went to a number of home games, and the place was about half full. And at the end of the season, Vince Tyra, the athletic director, I think had some pretty serious discussions about with Scott Satterfield about his future. Some people thought he was on the brink of making a change. That didn't happen. And Scott's back for year 4, and he pledged to make a much better push in recruiting, and so far he and his staff have done that.
So going into this season, there's a buzz that's positive and growing even more positive because of recruiting, but what do you feel like he's probably going to have to do during the season to really get people fully on board? Because obviously if they struggle, there's just as much of a chance Ruben Owens could, decommit and decide to go elsewhere. So what's kind of the key, do you think, for him in this season in establishing this and cementing it?
I think the key is the beginning of the season. If you look at Louisville's schedule, it's backloaded. The last 3 games are at Clemson, NC State, which is probably a top 25 team here, and then at Kentucky. So they start out at Syracuse on a Saturday night, and they go to Central Florida for another night game, then they come home and play a Friday night game with Florida State. I think they got to win 2 of those first 3, A, to build some momentum, and B, to get fans back on their side. I mean, you got a Florida State team in here for an ESPN game on a Friday night. They need to get it back to the way it was when they were filling the stadium and winning. So I think they got to win 2 of the first 3. They've dominated Syracuse since they've been in the ACC, beating them 7 out of 8 games, and all the wins were by at least 2 touchdowns. So they got to win that first game at Syracuse and then split the next 2, in my opinion.
You mentioned the crowd, the attendance was down. Is that just because they're not playing well, or is there something else to it?
I think it's because they were losing. I think people haven't been thrilled about the style of play, and you complain about the style of play when you're not winning. They've had some slip-ups on defense, and, it's been a variety. COVID, interrupted a lot of the momentum. People, they did allow crowds during the COVID year of about, I think, 25% of capacity, and I don't know how it's been, down in at A&M and Baylor and the schools in your area, Texas, but I think some people kind of held off on going to games. They got out of the habit a little bit, and when you're not winning, it's hard to get them back in the habit. And then that last game against Kentucky was brutal. I mean, it was by the end of the game in the fourth quarter, there were more Kentucky fans than Louisville fans in the stadium, and there was a big pocket of Kentucky fans right behind the Louisville bench, sort of heckling the Louisville players. So that wasn't a good final impression. So he needs to get it going again this year, and he knows that. He's been pretty open about it.
Rick, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there are a lot of people who will say, they're kind of getting these recruits because of NIL, and a lot of people will. But Louisville hasn't even really set up their big collective yet, have they?
It's in the process of being set up. I'm not sure if it's all the way set up. I know that Eric Crawford, my sidekick, has got an interview set up this week with one of the guys behind the collective. But they've got some other NIL opportunities that have gone on, and I think that's been the biggest switch they flipped since the end of last season. is to get in the game in that level. And it's been a stark turnaround. I mean, I looked today in the Athlon yearbook, which is out, and their recruiting last year in the ACC ranked 9th in the league. To go from 9th in the ACC to 11th in the country, that's a pretty dramatic change. I'm not sure anybody's ramped it up as much as Louisville has, and they can still sell a little bit of Lamar Jackson. I mean, kids that are seniors in high school now remember Lamar Jackson. They probably remember his Heisman year, and I think Louisville can still sell some of that Lamar Jackson buzz. They brought him back last year and retired his jersey. They're still trying to market the Lamar Jackson connection at Louisville.
How much can they market and kind of do that right now with Malik Cunningham and just the the star that he is, the talent that he has?
A little bit. I mean, that's the one. Satterfield really hasn't recruited a big-name quarterback yet. I guess Clarkson will be the first big one. Cunningham was a Petrino recruit, and
right.
That's been a big flaw. He had a guy that decommitted and went to Florida State. Jordan Travis, who's the starter at Florida State, came from here, and Cunningham has been somewhat of a underappreciated, overlooked guy. He had a bad year, the COVID year, but last year he came back and played well. He's a very good. He might be the best dual threat quarterback in the ACC and one of the better ones in the country. He ran for a lot of yards last year, so yeah, they can market him, but he's not Lamar. I mean, there's only one Lamar. We're not going to see another Lamar, so I still think they're better off selling Lamar and the excitement he had.
Rick, what did the commitment of Reuben Owens, which we brought up earlier, but what did that open even more eyes because of coming from the state of Texas? UT obviously is a team that initially that is appeared to be where he would end up, and did that open up even more eyes?
No doubt about it. It's a big talk radio topic here yesterday and today. There's been hints that he was going to come to Louisville for several weeks now, and that's not the kind of guy they've generally been able to recruit, even going back to Petrino or Charlie Strong, or especially pull him in from Texas. I mean, Charlie Strong recruited some good players here at Louisville, but they were all from Florida because that's where his connections were. And Petrino and John L. Smith and Schnellenberger, some of the coaches who were successful here, really were good. They got the local guys, but they did a better job of getting 3-stars and develop them. So then for Louisville to get a 5-star to Texas, I can't think of any big-name players they've ever gotten out of Texas or California. So it's a big step forward for the program, and people are talking about it. And, there's a big rivalry here, as you probably know, between Louisville and Kentucky. And Kentucky's been on the improve under Mark Stoops and done a really good job. And they've out-recruited Louisville pretty consistently over the last 7 or 8 years. And I think there's some Kentucky fans who are even noticing what Louisville's done and wondering what the secret sauce is.
Wait a minute, Louisville and Kentucky's a rivalry? Obviously,
just
that's
slightly.
incredible. Yeah.
And basketball.
Yeah, no. And Stoops has done a great job at Kentucky, no question.
Yeah, he really has. He's sort of a under the radar guy. And last year, I know his name was mentioned for several different jobs, Florida State being one of them, but they didn't make a change. And he has had great success, but Stoops has done it, getting guys out of Ohio and Michigan. He's kind of cut into Michigan State's territory there for a while, in Pennsylvania and the traditional places where SEC teams go, which is, Florida and Georgia and Alabama.
So I got to ask you this, because you're on WDRB. You wrote at another newspaper for a long, long time. You've been now where you are for 10 years. Is that a TV station or a TV station combination website?
It's a TV station combination website. They hired us 10 years ago, Eric Crawford and myself, away from the Courier-Journal, where we're both columnists. Because we have some forward-thinking people running our station saying, the future competition down the road is going to be all media people are going to be competing on the internet, and we wanted to get guys who could provide context for our website and draw them here to WDRB.com and to the TV station. So we write for the website 4 or 5 times a week, but we're also on TV 3 or 4 nights a week and more, during the NCAA tournament stuff or during football season. So that's what it is. It's WDRB-TV, which we're a Fox affiliate, and it's WDRB.com, and we have apps and the whole deal like everybody does.
Now, you do a great job of writing, and that's why we reached out to you as well. to go basketball with Kenny Payne now. They had the transition with Chris Mack and all that. I think that's the last time we had you on. Has Kenny Payne done what everyone needs him to do? Obviously, I still haven't played a game, but coached a game. But has he done what people need him to do so far to kind of keep everyone entrenched?
Yeah, he's done a great job of connecting with the community. Season ticket sales are already up 1,000 because he's reached out and done some public events and had a really great message. He's hired an impressive staff with Danny Manning, the former Kansas All-American and Wake Forest head coach. He hired Nolan Smith, who was at Duke and played for Duke, and Mike Krzyzewski's 2010 national championship team. And Nolan's father, Derek, played at Louisville on the 1980 NCAA champs. He hired Josh Jameson away from Oregon. They've gotten, I think, one good player, a 5-star from Tennessee out of the transfer portal. They've signed a couple of good recruits. They're looking for a couple more guys, but the big push will be for the class of 2023. And I don't know how much your people are into college basketball recruiting, but Milt Wagner played at Louisville. He's now on the Louisville staff and sort of an advisory, not an advisory role. He's a player personnel guy. And his son is DeJuan Wagner, and his grandson is DJ Wagner, who, depending on what service you look at, is either the number 1, 2, or recruit in the entire class. And it's pretty much at this point considered to be a battle between Kentucky and Louisville to get him. And Kenny Payne, I think, will be a star here. I've known him since he played at Louisville. He's a quality individual, and I think he'll do very well.
Well, since we cover Baylor basketball and they won the national title a year ago, and yeah, we keep up with it quite a bit. I have somebody on the chat, Rick, that wanted to know, how is Louisville doing so well? They have 5 commitments apparently out of California.
Well, that started with Pierre Clarkson. You know, Steve Clarkson is a guy, I think he was on 60 Minutes, that he's like a quarterback. He's a guy that people send their kids to learn to be a better quarterback, and they got a commitment from his son Pierre back I think it was in maybe March or April, and other guys one guy from his high school team and some other guys who I think are friends with him have followed, and they've done a job of creating a buzz about Louisville football. I'm not sure about the NIL stuff, but we all know that every school is using NIL to their advantage, and they've just been super aggressive in going out and pursuing guys, and that seems to be, you know, that they hired some different people in the recruiting office. I do know that much, and they've done a good job.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate your knowledge and insight. Thanks for your time, Rick Bozich, with WDRB-TV.com as well in Louisville on Louisville football, getting that commitment from Ruben Owens, but also right now having a nice start to the 2023 class.
This is